Welcome back to the My Latin Life podcast. Since 2014, My Latin Life has been your trusted guide to traveling and living in Latin America. My guest today is Ankur Nagpal. He's the founder of Carry.com, and he previously founded Teachable. Based in New York City, Ankur, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me, man. I'm super excited.
Yeah, absolutely. I know you've done a little bit of travels in Latin America, just kind of hanging around Mexico City, Buenos Aires, etc. But for the audience, the majority of this episode, we'll try to get some nuggets around personal finance, tax optimization for Americans, and maybe we'll talk a little bit about venture capital, building businesses, selling businesses. So we'll kind of bounce around a little bit, but that's the general idea.
Sweet, let's do it.
All right. So you're based in New York City. You were the founder of Teachable?
Yep. Started Teachable when I was 23 years old, when I just moved to New York City. Ran that business for 7 years before selling it in 2020 to a company based in Brazil. Spent a year thereafter, and yeah, I'm a free agent again.
You spent a year in Brazil?
We sold our company to a company called Hotmart. They're a fascinating business. It's the largest online education platform in Brazil. So we sold the company to them. I probably traveled to Brazil 5 or 6 times. I never quite lived there, but I'm still working pretty closely with them as well.
So Teachable is really big for people that don't know. Like, it's basically Teachable and Kajabi, and they're kind of the two big platforms for hosting your course, basically.
Yeah. So our vision early on, and this was 2013, was, look, we had all these people making money with Shopify stores and selling physical products. And our whole thesis was, in the future, more people will sell information, their knowledge in some way, shape, or form. Had no idea Teachable would sort of grow to be the size it did. It started out as a side project, that I was working on for fun. But yeah, we ended up scaling to about 60 million in revenue. Our creators did $500 million in sales the last year I was involved, which was 2021. So yeah, been quite the journey.
Wow. Yeah, like literally for the audience, if you Google, where should I host my online course? I want to sell a course, and there's like some blog posts with like top 5 platforms. It's like Teachable, Kajabi. I don't even know what else.
Yep.
But yeah, it's definitely like a legit.
Yep. And the company that bought us was basically Teachable for Brazil, except like there was no Kajabi or competitor. So they, dominate the Brazilian market. They're called Hotmart. So the merger made a ton of sense since they had aspirations to go global, to come to America, and the Teachable acquisition was the way forward for them.
So Teachable is Brazilian now.
Yeah, we are. Yeah, I always joked. We have we do back when we had an office, we had sports teams, soccer teams, and so forth. As did Hotmart, and we always joked that if only we could recruit some of the people from Hotmart to play at our company soccer team, would be a lot better. But we weren't very good. So
there you go. Are you still play soccer in New York?
Play different sports these days. Again, this may be a Latin connection. I've gotten a lot into paddle, which I picked up while traveling in Latin America, or padel. So yeah, that's been my sport of choice recently.
Okay, and that's pretty big in New York?
It's just started. So it obviously started in Latin America, made its way to Miami first. It's come to New York about a year ago, so it's pretty new still.
Okay, so Teachable is Brazilian. So you were involved in the company for like 6-7 years, probably a pretty long grind as a founder. You were, a lot of uncertainty about the outcome and so forth. But...
Yeah, absolutely. I think I can kind of break it up into a few different stages. Stage 1, you're like, you don't know if you have anything. You're like messing around. This could become something, could not become something. You make $1,000 one month, and it's $2,000, and it's $3,000. When we were making about $5,000 a month, I was like, okay, this is a real business. Ended up raising venture capital, building it the right way. And from there, I would say the next 3 years were honestly incredible. It was just like so fun. It was a group of people all in our mid-20s building this together, having a blast. After that, by I would say year 4, it got a little bit, more corporate. We, got more executives. The team size grew. That's when things got a little bit harder and probably less fun. So by the time it hit year 6, year 7, when this acquisition offer came inbound, I think I was quite ready to sort of, go back and do something fun, because the company, once you're over 100 people, it just becomes pretty corporate.
And Was it made public, the acquisition price?
I cannot speak to the acquisition price, but it was reported at $250 million, which I cannot confirm or deny.
Allegedly.
Yeah, allegedly, allegedly.
Sick. I mean, sick. I mean, that's amazing. And after selling Teachable, you've or alongside slash after you've been starting to invest in
Hmm.
companies, do some angel investments.
Yep.
I guess you put a wrapper around it called Vibe Capital.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. So I started investing, I would say, towards maybe a few months before I ended up selling the company, had more time. Then we went into lockdown where all of a sudden, you can't do anything in the evenings. I was in New York City. You're stuck in a 400 square foot apartment. That's when I was like, okay, I have time to spare. Let me launch a venture fund. Launched Vibe Capital, which was first a $12 million fund. Then we raised a second $70 million fund with the idea that, look,
Nice.
I didn't I wanted to be somewhat involved in tech, kind of be on top of things, but I didn't want to work as hard as like running my own company. And running a fund was kind of ideal for that because I spent the next 2 years traveling, living in different cities, different places, and was investing, and it was much more doable. Like running a startup is so intensive, it takes everything you have. Running a fund felt a lot easier. So I spent 2 years kind of, yeah, just chilling, hanging out, traveling to a bunch of places, investing, running Vibe Capital before finally deciding it was time to start another company.
So we'll get into Carrie soon.
Yep.
And by the way, for the audience, this is not like a paid advertisement or something. We're just kind of hanging out with an interesting founder here. But before we get into Carrie, tell me about this period of figuring out what you wanted to do next. You're traveling around, as I alluded to. You went to Buenos Aires, you went to Mexico City.
Mhm.
You're traveling, investing. That sounds like a cool stage of
Yeah,
life.
yeah, it was sick. So I sold the company. I started the company when I was 24. I sold the company when I was 31. Right, so bigger picture, relatively young. But for those 7 years, I'd been working out of an office every day, and I romanticized this idea of like, wow, we live in such a big world, and I've seen, relatively speaking, so little of it. The other thing to note is I'm a first generation immigrant. I moved to America for college. I'm originally from India. I grew up in Oman in the Middle East. So I also have this sense of like, yes, I'm now American, but there's so much more of the world, that I connect with and wanted to see. So one, I decided that the time I had left with my parents, it's finite. We don't live in the same place. So I want to prioritize seeing them a lot more. And two, I
Hmm.
wanted to go and, travel and see a bunch of different places. So I started out, when I started, it was tough because of COVID restrictions. So I remember in September 2020, Googling which country can I go to. Tanzania was open. So I went and climbed Mount Kilimanjaro, which was pretty sick. Um, then, yeah, spent a lot of time, I like to surf. So spent a bunch of time surfing in the north of Brazil, surfing in Sri Lanka. Ended up renting a car and driving all through the former, Balkan countries for a month and a half. Ended up living in Mexico City for a quarter. Yeah, it was honestly a great, great time. A lot of people say you travel and you get the travel bug out of your system. Unfortunately, I did not get the bug out of my system. I still love to travel. But after 2 years of that, I started to miss like this idea of like creating something dope with a group of people that I care about, and that kind of brought me back to New York.
So 2 year sabbatical, and
Exactly.
then back to New York. How recently did you reinstall yourself in New York City?
So I had a place here all the time, but I came back the fall of 2022. So it's been about a year and change since I've been back. And I basically came back with the idea of starting Carry.
Okay, so into 2023, you came back.
Yep.
Okay,
Fall of 2022. Yep.
fall 2022.
Yep.
Okay, and just curious, why did you choose New York as opposed to say San Francisco or Austin or Miami or something?
Yeah, absolutely. So I went to school in Berkeley on the West Coast. So, very tech focused. So I immediately moved to
You
San
went to
Francisco.
UC Berkeley. Okay.
Correct. Yep. So I
Uh-huh.
immediately lived in San Francisco right after, from age 20 to, yeah, 22. And even though I worked in tech, San Francisco just felt like too much tech for me. It was a monoculture, and I kind of wanted to escape. So I came to New York for a weekend when I was 23, and dude, like at that age, New York is incredible. You just like, especially compared to California, like New York is a young person's playground. I mean, I came here for a weekend, it was incredible, and kind of just stuck around because I enjoyed my life in New York. So that's why, I've been here. It's just, I think in some ways, the only real city in America in a lot of ways, like no offense to any of the other cities. So, and from that point on, I just stayed on because it was the place I wanted to be. And therefore I built a company around here.
Hmm. Well, I can see you on video. The audience can't because we're just recording audio. You have a dope apartment. It looks gigantic by New York standards from what I'm kind of seeing through that door.
Yeah. Yeah, no. Again, I was very fortunate to sell my business when I did because when I sold my company, I was living in a apartment that might have been 350 square feet. And it didn't matter at the time because you're in New York, you're going out every night, you're out all the time, you spend so little time at home. But then I was locked inside that apartment for basically months. But
Mhm.
after the acquisition closed, I bought a townhouse in Brooklyn, which has been really nice. The biggest thing it's allowed me to do is, again, my parents just retired and now they're able to come here for like a month or 2 months every summer. And we all have enough space that we're not getting in each other's way, and it's really nice to be able to like spend time with them.
Nice. Are they in Oman or are they in India?
They're in Oman.
Are you an Omani citizen?
No, so I'm truly third culture where grew up in Oman, but for people who don't know, if you're in Oman, Dubai, anything in that region, your relationship with the local government is you're basically a worker. You'd have no like legal rights. So my parents always had a work visa over there. I had a visa tied to their visa. I had an Indian passport until I moved to America. Moving to America, and if anyone ever is curious, like immigration was such a fucking pain. But eventually, after sort of spending years battling the immigration system, I got a green card and eventually now a U.S. passport. But I started off with an Indian passport.
Hmm. Did that make you have to renounce India and get I think it's called the ICO card or?
Correct, correct. Like India is very like, hey, if you want, you can't be with us and someone else. You basically have to kind of only have one passport if it's an Indian passport. So I probably should formally renounce it. I've at this point mentally renounce it. I still happen to have both documents, but technically at this point, because I'm an American citizen, I have no status in India.
Cool, cool. And
Yeah.
you're in Brooklyn now. You got the brownstone or the
Yep.
townhouse or
Yep.
whatever.
Yep.
Awesome. How's it feel to be back?
It's been great. I had this realization. I actually tweeted about this when I was coming back from Argentina. I spent all of February. So we work out of an office every single day except for the month of February. Winter is pretty brutal, and what we did for February is we told the entire team go work out of any place, get some sunshine, whatever. And I spent the month in Argentina, and I had an incredible time. It was so much fun. But like as I was reflecting on my time there, I realized that at least for me, if you want to build a tech startup specifically, not any kind of business, like that's one thing America is really good at. Like I think Argentina, a lot of Latin America, a lot of these places are frankly better for life. It's just a better way to live your life. But for the era I'm in now, where I want to build a massive company, there's no place like the angst of a city like New York.
Hmm. And I'm sure we advocate for remote work a lot, but I'm totally down for an opposite perspective, which is probably that there's
Dude, I think it
value of.
depends so much on what you're doing. And like for most jobs, if I were doing that, I would want to be remote, right? It's only like if I'm starting a tech startup with the idea of building a company that could be one day worth tens of billions of dollars. Like you can't do that remote. But for most people, including like my family members, I'm like, dude, you should go remote, and it's a better sort of quality of life. So I think it
Mhm.
totally depends on what you're trying to do, as well as the stage of your life or career. Right now, I'm at a point where I'm prioritizing my career over my life, and at some point, I think maybe in my 40s or whatever, I'd live elsewhere again.
Do you have remote team members?
We do not at this company. We're a very small team right now. We're 12 people, and we have a tax team. The tax people are remote. The rest of it, everyone's in the office every single day.
And you think that leads to better synergies and stuff?
I think there's two stages. I think in the early days, you stay everyone in the same office, and then eventually you go global because there's so much benefit of being able to arbitrage sort of the global talent market. The thing I don't get is like the in between where you have everyone in the US, but you're paying US salaries, but you don't like take advantage of like, but you're still remote. That's the part. That's the in between that I don't really like too much. But I think
Okay, so you don't want American remote. You want American in person or like some Argentine developer
like
remote.
either you're fully in person or you take advantage of globalization, right? Like I think that's sort of the way. That's sort of the way to do it.
That makes sense.
Yep.
Okay, so maybe we can tell people a little bit more about what Carry is.
Yeah, absolutely. So when I sold Teachable, I knew nothing about personal finance. I knew nothing about taxes at the time. Ended up hiring a bunch of lawyers, accountants, and people to figure it out right before selling my company. And it blew my mind as I learned like how the US tax code was created, how complex it is, but also how many opportunities are there inside the tax code, especially for business owners. It almost radicalized me where I'm like, there should be an app or a tool or a product that helps regular people figure out how to be smart with their taxes. And that was the genesis of what eventually did become Carry. Today, what Carry is we help business owners and sometimes high income earners save money on taxes by setting up a bunch of tax advantaged accounts. For instance, if you live in the US and you work by yourself, you're eligible for something called a solo 401k. This is a one person 401k plan, but it's pretty sick because you can get a tax deduction of almost $70,000 every year, stash that money in this account. It's all your gains are tax free inside it. And because it's your own 401k plan, you can invest it however you want. You can invest it in real estate, you can invest it in crypto, you can invest it in regular stocks. It's a super powerful account, and we've just productized that whole experience.
Okay. I imagine this part of the podcast might start being very US centric,
Yep.
right? Because Carry is obviously founded in the US and you primarily or you only cater to the US market at this point in time. And obviously it's a huge market. You don't even need to go anywhere else, but that's what it is, right? It's US only.
We have education, some of which is applicable to everyone, but all our financial products are US only. Eventually, we'd want to like expand, and I know especially Canadians keep asking us for help, but the reality is it's just like hard. It's hard enough as it is, right? Just
Yeah, the US is
like
hard enough.
yeah, just demystifying the US tax code is hard enough, and it's a big enough market. So a lot of our focus is on the US, but I will say for most people listening, there's an equivalent version in your country, maybe called something else, but a lot of the general principles kind of work the same, especially in other English speaking countries.
Okay. I do want to get into the weeds, but before we do, my understanding is so you recently, I think I just saw an announcement the other day. We're recording this mid-May that you acquired the carry.com
Hmm.
domain.
Yep.
That was probably expensive.
It's very expensive. It was very expensive, but we're not allowed to say how much it is because I signed a lot of scary paperwork that we wouldn't. But I can say it was quite expensive. And domains are such a hard thing because it's very hard to say this domain is worth X dollars. But what I am very confident of is like the value to our company will end up being substantially more than what we paid for it, just because people end up taking you much more seriously when you have sort of a premium domain.
Hmm. And what was the domain before?
So we briefly were called ocho.com, like the Spanish word for eight.
Uh-huh.
But then we ended up getting sued by someone who had a trademark for Ocho. So we had to rebrand. We rebranded to Carry, but our domain was carrymoney.com for an in between period of time, which obviously is like less sexy than carry.com. So,
Carrymoney.com.
yep, that's. And the annoying thing is then people started calling us Carry Money, and we're like, no, we're called Carry. And, eventually we got the domain.
Okay, cool. And if we didn't specifically say, I mean, we kind of did, but so carry is for business owners and high income
Earner.
individuals,
Yep.
earners. And what are they going to get by signing up for carry?
Yeah. So what they get is a bunch of tax advantaged accounts that can help them save money on their taxes. So for instance, we can help them set up a solo 401k account. We can help them set up an IRA. These are all like retirement accounts that end up giving you tax savings either now or in the future. Additionally, we also have a bunch of educational materials on tax saving strategies, like, whether it's real estate, whether it's energy investing, whether it's angel investing. We kind of go into the weeds about everything you need to figure out in order to save money on taxes. And finally, we connect them with a financial planner as well, who can kind of look at their specific situation, come up with a plan kind of tailor made to an individual. And the focus is very much business owners because the US tax code is written for the benefit of business owners. So there's just the most opportunity there.
Mm-hmm. And I'm on the website right now. I click join carry join carry, and it asks me to enter email, password. We haven't pre-planned this at all, but are there promo codes out there? Is it possible to make a My Latin Life promo code?
We'll have to talk to the team async, and if we do, we'll add it to the show notes or something.
Okay, but as of right now, you don't really have
As
promo
of right
codes?
now, in general, and this is something I learned from the Teachable experience. At Teachable, we used to never run discounts, and eventually we started running discounts, and they worked really well initially, and then they kind of hurt us later on, where it would train consumer behavior to wait for a discount. So, someone that sold a lot of digital products, um, I think if you're selling information products like courses and stuff, discounts can be great. But if you're selling software products, I'm a little biased against discounts personally.
Right, like how Udemy used to be like every
Exactly.
time you logged in, it would be like $10,
Yeah. Yeah.
90% off, and you're like, shit,
Yeah.
I gotta buy this, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I think sometimes Udemy, we call them the Kmart of online education, right? Like they became this like bargain basement of like, yeah, get like 17 courses for like $9 or whatever.
Uh-huh. Okay. Um, so the tax code, I heard it said a particular way. I think it was from like one of the Rich Dad Poor Dad guys,
Mhm.
but they said there's only like 5 rules in the tax code that are actually taxes, and then
Mhm.
the whole rest of the multi-thousand page book is deductions.
Mhm. Yeah, there's some like basically the state of the tax code is 150,000 words are added every single year, and there's no one person in the world that knows the entirety of it, right? So whatever you look at, there's always like workarounds, loopholes, and things that like get added to the tax code accidentally. Like people have this myth. They're like, oh, the IRS, like, they're here to protect billionaires. Like, that's why billionaires pay no taxes. The reason is not that. The IRS intentions are good, but some smart lawyer or accountant will interpret some law or some clause a certain way, do something. The IRS will challenge them. It will go to court, and the IRS will lose. And that's how like we get most loopholes. Most loopholes come because
Like case law.
case law. Exactly. The IRS gets the IRS loses a surprising amount of cases, and that's how we end up getting most loopholes. But I honestly feel bad for the regulators because so much shit is well intentioned, and then someone finds some smart ass somewhere finds like a smart way of like interpreting it a different way, and then the IRS sues them and loses, and now we have a new workaround. Even like the 401k was not quite intended to be like like what it became. It was accidentally introduced when someone interpreted how a defined contribution retirement plan should work, and then we ended up getting the 401k. And the same thing exists with so many like fancy like wealthy person techniques.
Hey guys, quick break from the podcast to tell you about job stacking. If you're a remote or hybrid worker looking to maximize your earning potential, then Rolf Haltza, author of Job Stacking, guarantees you'll be able to double your income by implementing his paycheck multiplication layering method. This is the exact system Rolf has used to take his own income and those of many others beyond $20K a month. With this method, Rolf contractually guarantees that you'll be able to double your income in 45 days. So, if you're interested in unleashing your earning potential and doubling your income, then click the link in the description and book a call with Rolf right now. Hey guys, quick break from the episode to tell you about BitRefill. BitRefill allows you to shop online and in person without banks, converting your crypto directly into merchant balance. We're talking gift cards to Nike, Amazon, Apple, Airbnb, Hotels.com, and many more, all paid for with crypto. BitRefill offers more than 10,000 gift card options in 180 countries all across Latin America, including Brazil, Colombia, Mexico, Argentina, El Salvador, and many more. You can also apply the code MyLatinLife at checkout to get 10% back on your first purchase. Go to bitrefill.com for more information.
Okay. And I do want to go into the weeds a bit, but I'm just curious, why did you decide to attack this market? Like, did you end up paying too much taxes along your entrepreneurial journey, or because this is like finance stuff is pretty competitive. It sounds like you're literally going up against Fidelity and some of these other
100%.
like
We're up
custodian
against
type
Fidelity.
guys.
Look, I mean, like Charles Schwab is probably the company we most want to be like. Schwab was, they were started in 1975, which feels like forever ago, but they're amongst one of the younger companies in the whole, finance space when you have JP Morgan that's been around for 200 years. But either way, Schwab is a $150 billion company, and that's sort of the size of our ambition, where we want to eventually build a financial institution from the ground up. But the real reason was I just think taxes are something that I think it's very hard for most individuals to create alpha, aka outperform based on their investments. Like for most people, indexing the stock market, paying a low fee is the way to sort of grow and compound their wealth. But if you can save money off the top and pay less in taxes, I think that's an actual source of alpha. It gives you more dollars to compound the market with.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I do believe for most people, there's hidden opportunities, like there's optimizations pretty much everyone can make. So I got interested in this just because I was like, there's such a big delta between people who have access to like good lawyers and accountants and those that don't.
It's
And I'm
true.
like, software should be able to solve this.
Right. So we're kind of democratizing these things that before you needed high
Exactly.
paid New York
Yep.
lawyers, and
Exactly.
now
You
my
got it.
guy is Ankur, also in New
Yeah.
York.
Yeah, exactly. You got it. So we're like, dude, this should not be like privileged sort of information. Let's fucking talk about it. Let's like run webinars, show people exactly what everyone does. Let's build software to make this easy. Let's just bring all of this to the masses and see what happens.
So what were some of the mistakes that you made along the way where maybe you said, damn, I should have invested more in my 401k, or I should have done this solo 401k thing, or were you
I,
perfect all along, or
no, I have and continue to do so much stupid stuff. But like as an example, when I was like pretty young, when I was like 18, 19, I ran a business that built Facebook applications. This was back in 2008, 2009, where you could build silly applications on Facebook, like friend quizzes and personality quizzes and games and all that stupid stuff. But I
yeah.
was making real money. I was making, at its peak, tens of thousands of dollars a day. But I didn't know shit about any of this. Like I ended up paying almost 50% of it in tax because I was living in California. I didn't set up the right business structure. If I'd set up an S corp, I probably would have saved, I don't know, like tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars in taxes. I was just not very good about any of that. But to be honest, like even now, there's so much stuff I'm not good at, which is why what we tell people is like, be aware of how this stuff works. You don't have to do everything. And also, you also don't want to save every dollar in taxes. I think it's really important to think about what is the return on hassle, right? Like if something can take you many
Return
hours,
on hassle. I've never heard that.
yeah.
I
If
like
something
that.
take you many hours and save you $5, like that's not really worth it, right? So trying to like separate out the stuff that matters and the stuff that doesn't. But I'll tell you, like as an example, business expenses. I don't fucking remember to do that half the time, and that's fine. Like I should, but it's at the end of the day not the biggest deal. But for instance, QSBS, which can save startup founders 10 million bucks, you don't want to mess that up, right?
What was that?
So QSBS is called Qualified Small Business Stock, and any startup founder, employee, or investor who holds shares in a C corp for 5 years can pay no taxes on $10 million when they sell. So it's pretty big. No federal taxes and no state taxes in 42 or 43 out of the 50 states. So you can sell a company for $10 million and literally keep $10 million. It's pretty insane.
Okay, that sounds pretty good.
Yep. So that's an example of like, okay, that's a big thing. You don't want to mess up. Smaller stuff doesn't really matter if you mess up.
And obviously you can only take on sort of one financial product at a time, and you're kind of building the portfolio.
Correct.
I imagine you're probably using the playbook of, Robinhood, Wealthfront, these kind of companies where they started with one thing, maybe it was a brokerage account or
Yep.
whatever, and then they've kind of added these tangential services.
Correct. Exactly. We're doing that while always focusing on education as well. So education is so we're not spending money on marketing in the conventional way. Like you'll never see us running a paid ad. What we will do is spend the same dollars on like content. We'll do like conferences, webinars, workshops, courses, all of that. So we'll do that. And then on the financial product side, we started with the solo 401k. Then we added other types of retirement accounts. Eventually, we'll add a health savings account. We'll keep adding, like that's where the portfolio play will come in, where every year we'll release, I don't know, 2 to 4 new products.
Okay. And what do you guys do different than, say, Wealthfront or Robinhood? Or I imagine there's been random startups that have started a solo 401k company before.
Yes, you'd be surprised at how few. So all the examples you just sort of brought up, like Robinhood and so forth, do not do solo 401ks. They're kind of a very specific niche account. The big brokerages, Vanguard, Schwab, Fidelity, do solo 401ks, but they don't do any of the more advanced features. Like, for example, in a solo 401k, you can have Roth contributions, which are after-tax contributions. Most of the brokerages don't support them. There's You can technically borrow up to $50,000 from your solo 401k for any reason. That's not supported. You can technically invest in any asset class, but all of these websites limit, what you can invest in. There's all of this stuff also compounded by the fact that they're just bad at technology. Like Fidelity requires you to send a fucking paper check. Most of them don't allow you to automate contributions in any way. So all of these bigger brokerages, while interesting, aren't sort of tech companies. They're financial institutions, and that's where we think our opportunity is.
Okay, so you sounds like you're pretty confident that you have the best solo 401k on the market.
Correct. I'm very confident we have the best solo 401k on the market. The caveat is that's just one product, and our goal has to be how do we take that and become the best everything in the market, and that's where I think there's a lot of work to be done.
Okay, so why would I want a solo 401k? I mean, I do have an LLC. I got different income and stuff.
Yep.
But why do I want this thing?
Yeah, so this basically allows you to get a really fat tax deduction. Like normally, most accounts, like an IRA, lets you deduct about $7,000 in your taxes. A solo 401k, the limit is up to $69,000 a year. So what you can do is based on your income, you can calculate how much you can contribute. But once you contribute that, it reduces your taxable income and goes inside the solo 401k account. So you get a tax deduction up front. But now inside this account, all your investments are tax-free. So you can invest in startups, crypto, whatever. As it grows, there's no taxes in the compounding process. And theoretically, let's say you set it up as a Roth type of account, which is where you put in after-tax dollars, you never have to pay any taxes on that again. So it's just a very good way, effective way of building wealth in a tax-shielded manner.
And you're penalized if you take it out before age 55 or something?
Before age 59 and a half, but you can borrow up to $50,000 yourself for any reason and pay it back and you get the interest. And depends again on the contribution. Like theoretically, if you make Roth contributions, you can take them out after 5 years. You don't have to wait for 59 and a half. Traditional contributions, you typically have to wait for 59 and a half unless you do something called substantially equal periodic payments, which allows you to there are ways of working around it if it's important, right? Typically people leave it until retirement.
Okay. And I pay the interest to myself?
Yeah, it's pretty sick. So if you borrow money, you can borrow money from your solo 401k, and you have to pay market interest rate, but the market interest goes right back to your 401k. So no outside. So it's a great source of liquidity if you actually need to borrow. The only caveat is it's capped at $50,000. You can't borrow more than that. But for up to $50,000, it's an incredible way of getting liquidity.
Okay.
That's you actually stumbled across a great reason as to why someone would want to set up a solo 401k. So what some people do is they'll set up a solo 401k because they have a business. They'll transfer in all their other retirement money to it, maybe an old 401k or whatever, just for the purpose of borrowing from it. And now they have this like line of credit that's, $50,000 that they can tap at any point, and the interest goes right back to their account.
And I believe with the traditional 401ks, you can buy a house with them or something?
You can take up to 10 grand to put a down payment on a house.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Same thing with the solo 401k?
Yep. Exactly.
Only 10K? Oh,
yeah,
weird.
So it doesn't move the dial. So being able to borrow 50,000 is much more. You can
I
also
thought there was a thing where people like buy houses in Mexico with their 401k money, but
So you can do that, but that's different. So if I can take all of my 401k money and make any kind of commercial real estate investment, right? If it's an investment, I can do whatever I want. I can take $1 million from my 401k, buy an investment property anywhere in the world, and do that.
That rings a bell.
Yep.
Okay. And why do I want to, trust my life savings with Carry, some venture-backed startup that could,
Yep.
go belly up? I imagine you have custodians or something.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, this question comes up a lot. So we use a series of, so the first and most important thing is for the solo 401k, you are the plan administrator. You are the trustee. You are ultimately the person who has access to the assets, which is very important as like part one. Part two is we use third-party custodians at the back end. Like your money never actually touches us. For instance, if you invest in like stocks or ETFs, we use a third-party custodian called Drive Wealth, who's used by Square, Cash App, PayPal, all of them. All of the funds are FDIC protected on the cash, up to $250,000. All the securities are SIPC protected. So we don't actually ever even touch the dollars. It's all held in a separate account in the name of the plan or the individual, using these third-party custodians. So
Okay. And how are you guys making money? It's like referral fees for the stocks we buy, or is it a management fee?
it's
Or
really simple. So I don't like management fees. I don't like assets under management fees. I don't like any of that. It's a SaaS model. It's basically the Teachable pricing, where at Teachable, people paid us either $39 or $99 a month to like create their courses. Here you pay us either 29 or 49 bucks a month based on which plan you want, and that sort of covers everything.
okay, so I pay you $50 a month and I get a best in class solo
Correct.
401k.
Solo 401k is even cheaper. It's 29 bucks a month. 50 bucks a month also gets you access to a financial planner and the ability to make alternative investments. If you're like basically fancy, like if you're trying to do like fancy real estate startups, all of that, that's on the more expensive plan. But just a regular solo 401k, it's 29 bucks a month.
Okay, so about $300 a year to
Mm-hmm.
manage my solo 401k, and whatever kind of stuff you add after that.
Exactly. Solo 401ks, we have IRAs, we're launching HSAs, health savings accounts soon, as well as you get access to our entire education library, which is lots of very in-depth courses on all these topics.
Okay. Well, that sounds pretty good. And I guess for you guys, you basically have a recurring revenue stream where I imagine there's not too much churn
There's
or
not a, we've had like once people have gotten their solo 401k going, we've had a total of 3 people churn out of something close to 1,000. Um, with that said, churn is much higher on the cohorts where people don't invest yet. Like if someone is just using us for the courses, they're much more likely to pay for a while, take some courses, churn, come back later, that kind of behavior.
and what courses should I take?
So it depends. So courses that I really like, there's a really cool one on how to best arbitrage credit card points. So that's something we haven't really talked about here, and it's slightly off topic, but I think if you spend money in the US on credit cards, you absolutely should be traveling first class in style always. Like once you kind of figure out, where to get your points, where to transfer them, that's a really fun one. Then we have courses on angel investing. We have a new course coming out on for anyone who has equity compensation. Maybe they work at a startup, like how to kind of demystify that. Then we have personal finance for startup founders. And we're looking at adding about a course a month. So lots of new stuff coming.
Okay. And does this 401k only apply to business owners? Like, do you have to use the income specifically from the business? Or could it be, you have a business, but technically it's like your W-2 income or something?
So to set it up, you have to be a business owner, but any kind of business counts. If you make $100 on Airbnb or whatever, that counts. So like my solo 401k is set up because Twitter pays me like $100 a month for posting. But as you pointed out, the new dollars you contribute have to be from that business. I can't take my W2 money and put that in this.
Okay.
But
Only the
what you
business profits.
correct. But what you can do is take your other old 401ks and move those assets into this. So if you
Okay.
have, yeah.
So you can switch a normal or a Roth 401k or I guess that's IRA.
Yeah.
You can switch a normal 401k into a solo 401k just because you're a business owner?
Yeah. So let's imagine you had a 401k at your last company and you don't know what, like, you can basically fetch that 401k and you can basically always consolidate your accounts. and you can consolidate your accounts into a solo 401k. So that happens a lot actually, where if someone wants to do a backdoor Roth IRA, which is when they make too much money to do a Roth IRA, which is about $160,000 a year, what they typically do is take all of their IRA money, move it to their solo 401k, and then do their Roth IRA, because it helps them avoid something called the pro rata rule, which would otherwise make it a taxable transaction. I know this is probably, I've lost everyone because this is now getting relatively, nuanced, and
I'm pretty much with you.
yeah, yeah,
Okay. Okay, cool. So basically, your ideal customer is a business owner with, a profitable business.
correct,
So not just like a startup guy losing money. It's a
correct. You
kind
need
of
to
like a
have,
small, like a dentist or something.
yeah, but it can also be a creator, it can be a consultant, it can be a freelancer, it can be
Uh-huh.
someone who's doing gigs on the side. Anyone who's getting paid as a contractor would
Okay,
count.
so do you need a business entity or
You
can
don't
it
need
be
a
any
business.
1099 income?
And any 1099 income works. You don't even
Okay,
need a
well,
business. Exactly. So the market's actually quite big because it includes anyone freelancing or making anything on the side.
right, right. I mean, 1099.
Yep.
Hmm, interesting. I mean, there's so many people who do 1099, but they don't really have a business.
Yep.
Any kind of like contractor, software developer guy or something like that.
Absolutely. I mean, every one of our customers at Teachable basically counts for this. So
Okay, a little
yeah.
cross.
Yeah.
Are you still involved in Teachable in some capacity?
So I'm still an observer at the board at Hotmart, the parent company. I'm not super
Uh-huh.
involved with Teachable, but I'm a big shareholder in the Brazilian company. So we're still in touch, and I still kind of help them strategically. But Teachable specifically have not been involved day to day for about 2 years now.
Okay, makes sense. And I guess we're going off topic, but whatever. So with Vibe Capital,
Mhm.
I imagine it's pretty tough when you've raised money and there's an expectation that you work with these portfolio companies for 5 to 10 years, but now you have the startup. Are you raising more funds for Vibe
So
Capital, or are
I
you?
gave back money. So actually, like as I started Carry, I thought I had enough time for everything, and then within 1 month, I was like, "There's no fucking way I can like be spending as much time on investing." So what I did is I basically gave back about 40% of the capital we raised, about $30 million. We returned to investors, or we canceled their future capital calls. And I also invested in Carry from Vibe. So Vibe owns 20% of Carry. So I fully aligned incentives and gave back a ton of money. So collectively, I think that left all Vibe investors pretty happy. In terms of Vibe portfolio companies, I mean, it is definitely more challenging to find time. I still try to find time with, especially the ones I'm closer to, but it's undoubtedly much harder when you're running your own business.
Fair enough. And for Carry, I looked on Crunchbase. I couldn't find much in terms of raisings and so forth.
Yeah, so we raised, like initially Vibe was the main investor. We are in the midst of, we'll have some funding news to share very soon. I can't say more just
Woo!
yet, but yeah, it's we just been dealing with all that right now.
Okay, epic. Um, do you have any more tax tips that you want to share? Maybe like epiphanies or aha moments that you personally had, or maybe just like the 1, 2, 3 list of things people
Yeah,
should be doing?
yeah, absolutely. So I'll just give sort of very high level, some few high level points. One, it's important to understand who the tax code is written for, and in America, it's largely written for business owners. Um, in terms of asset classes, real estate is probably the most tax advantaged asset class in America today. So the combination of business owners and real estate is there's just so much you can do. Um, in terms of why being a business owner is so good, few things. One, being a business owner lets you expense and deduct a lot of things you otherwise would not be able to. For instance, if you work from home as a W 2 employee, you can't expense your home office. But you do it as a business owner, you can actually expense your home office. Um, if you live in California or New York, you don't get that big a deduction for your state taxes. It's capped at $10,000 a year. But if you pay the same taxes through your business, there's no limit. There's all of these little things that are just like programmed in the tax code to make it better for business owners. Like right now, most business owners get an automatic 20% deduction called the QBI deduction. There's just all of this stuff buried inside. The other reason I think being a business owner is pretty sick is you can pay for the best benefits in the game. Like you can get the best insurance, you can get the best uh, credit card points. You can get the best like retirement plan. Being able to hand select your benefits really lets you take advantage as a business owner.
As
And then
opposed to have it being tied to your employment.
exactly. And I was going to say, finally, the last thing is what we briefly talked about is if you have a C corp, you should know how QSBS works, which is where you can pay no taxes on $10 million when you sell your company, and through some smart tax planning, multiply that. Like if you give your shares to your brother, your sister, your dad, your mom, each person gets their own $10 million limit. So as a household, like the Roblox founder was saying, he's given like 7 family members shares. So as a family, they don't pay taxes on $80 million when they sell their shares. So pretty remarkable.
Okay, interesting. And you kind of said that you have more investment opportunities on your platform that I would get with, say, Fidelity.
So right now we don't surface investment opportunities, but we let people do those investments. So let's say you want to invest in a real estate project, or let's say you want to invest in crypto, or let's say you want to invest in a startup. You can facilitate that on Carry. You can't do that on Fidelity, Schwab, or Vanguard, where they only allow for publicly listed equities.
Hmm. So is this just like 100% a no-brainer for business owners to have a solo 401k?
I believe so. I think if you have the income where you can support it, because again, who should not do this is a good question, right? So let's imagine, I don't know, you need all your income to kind of get by. This doesn't make sense. But if you have extra income to like save, invest, grow for retirement, it's a complete no brainer.
And people could like build um like run all their investments through this solo 401k,
Correct. Yep.
whether it be invest in certain types of property
Hmm.
or I don't know, angel invest or
Yep. Absolutely. All of the above. And there's no taxes as your account is growing, right? Which is really cool because otherwise, pretty much annually you pay taxes, which reduces the rate of compounding, the rate of growth. Here it
uh-huh.
just keeps growing.
Okay, that definitely makes sense. And then so if I want to get even just something simple like, you know, a 5% checking account where I hold my cash, there's a way to do that
But yeah, so
through the
right now on Carry, your cash automatically pays 5.3%. You don't have to do anything. Any cash in the account will pay 5.3%.
Okay, that's pretty good and
Yeah.
that's
But that's
obviously
obviously a moving rate, right?
right and there's no taxes on that on the end of the
Exactly.
year.
Yep. Yep.
Okay. That all sounds pretty
And if
good.
it's in a Roth account, there could be no taxes on that ever.
Meaning if it comes from a Roth account?
So when you make a contribution, you have the choice of doing a pre-tax contribution, which is what most people do, and
Uh-huh.
that gives you a tax deduction today. But what you can also do is make a Roth contribution, which is you put in
The
after
post
tax.
tax.
Correct.
And the limit is if you make more than 160K, then you
With the
can't do
solo
Roth.
401k, there's no limit. That's only with the Roth IRA.
So, okay, so the thing is, if you make more than 160K, you cannot do a Roth IRA normally.
Hmm. And you'd have to do a backdoor Roth IRA. Separately from that, altogether, you can do a Roth contribution to a solo 401k. You can do a Roth solo 401k regardless of how much money you make.
Okay, because Roth, especially if you just have a low tax rate now
Hmm.
for whatever reason,
Oh, Roth is incredible.
then Roth makes sense because I live outside the US.
Yep.
So I do the
And you have the
foreign income
foreigner. Yep.
so I do the foreign income exclusion. So my tax rate is really, really low,
Yep.
like single digits,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
Um, but if I make more than 160K, I can't do Roth, which kind of sucks because I'd be doing Roth at a single digit percentage.
So you can do it. So you should do a mega backdoor Roth. Oh, sorry, a regular backdoor Roth IRA for that. But on top of that, you can do Roth in a solo 401k.
What is a mega backdoor Roth?
So let's okay. So a backdoor Roth IRA is basically when you contribute to a traditional IRA and then convert it to Roth. So it's like a workaround when you make too much to a Roth IRA,
Okay.
and that's $7,000 a year. A mega backdoor Roth IRA uses your 401k to do that, and that lets you get up to $69,000 a year in a Roth IRA, and that uses your solo 401k where you actually make an optional after-tax contribution of whatever you want, and then convert that. But you can combine the both to get over $70,000 a year into Roth accounts.
Okay, so this sounds like something maybe I should be doing.
Yeah, and that Carry does all of that as well. We do backdoor Roth IRAs, mega backdoor Roth IRAs. It's all sort of productized into our offering.
Yeah, we don't have too much time left, but I wanted to ask about kind of the tax component because you mentioned tax system very set up for business owners. There's a million rules, no one knows it all. Do you guys provide like, I don't know, AI driven advice or something like that? Do you guys kind of tell us a little bit what to do? Because when you create a Fidelity account, they really like tell you what to do.
Yep. So we have a financial planner who's not a tax accountant or anything, and they can help out a little bit. And then we have our super high-end plan where we actually have a CPA do everything for you. But that's not a big focus of ours. That's literally just meant for a handful of people, and it helps us kind of do our R&D.
I think that's the VIP one.
Correct. Yeah. Okay. The short answer is we're figuring it out. Personally, I don't think AI is ready, right? Everyone thinks AI will solve all of this, and it could someday. But right now, this is so high stakes. AI will like sometimes say the wrong thing with a lot of confidence. Like H&R Block built this like test AI bot. It was a fucking disaster. Like it just gave people like incorrect advice repeatedly. So we want to try and think about smart ways of doing that. Right now, we don't. So right now, sometimes people either work with someone else or they figure it out themselves, but we don't directly provide tax advice yet for the majority of people. But the financial planner can help with quite a few more basic things.
Okay, fair enough. We'll wrap it up on a couple light questions. How did you get 86,000 followers on Twitter?
Just by sharing, viral threads about, first it was talking about how I was building Teachable in public, like shared all our numbers, was very, very upfront. And then just been sharing cool like tax and personal finance strategies. It's been a slow grind though. I've been on Twitter for, over 10 years.
And even Carry, which is at Carry HQ_, has 11,000 followers, which is pretty high for a business. You buying followers? How did that happen?
No, it's all. So if you actually, there used to be a tool where you could see people's most like shared threads. There was a lot of tax threads we had that popped off. And at the end, right, the last tweet was always like, look, my company Carry is solving this, like, like keep us on your radar or whatever. And we had a few of those threads, like when they worked, each one would like probably add 1,000 to Carry at a time. But this was probably 6 months ago. The account's growing relatively slowly recently.
Yeah, threads kind of got replaced by long form posts, I guess.
Yep.
Okay, cool. And you like cricket?
Yeah, big cricket fan. Grew up playing cricket, played internationally for Oman until I moved to America. So yeah.
You played on the national team?
The national under-17 team, yep.
Wow. Oh, so you're like really good.
I mean, sports have always been a big part of my life. I will caveat, I played cricket for Oman, which is like playing cricket for Mexico probably, where it's a minority sport. So when we played against like the big guns in India, we got destroyed. So
that's cool. Yeah, I've played a little cricket in my day.
Nice.
I'm not good. I don't really know. The rules are complicated. When you get into it.
Yeah. I actually had one of the craziest experiences when I was in Argentina, and I like stumbled into like a cricket game there. There's enough British heritage that they still have like a reasonably. I think they're the best in Latin America by quite a bit, but it was pretty cool.
Mm-hmm. Same with rugby in Argentina.
Yep, exactly.
Okay, cool. I like it. Do you play in New York? Is there?
I haven't had a chance to play, but the Cricket World Cup is happening and has a few games in New York this summer, so I'll be going to a few games.
Ooh, very cool.
Yep.
All right. Cool, man. Well, let's get to wrapping it up. Ankur, do you want to kind of take this time and share a last message with the audience?
I mean, one, if you're still here after an hour of, tax stuff, props to you. But no, I really do think like, again, my general parting message to people is like, look, being a business owner, if you can, is the way to go. In addition to all these tax benefits, I just think it shows you that like, money is something that you can always make more of. Like the mindset around it gets a lot like stronger when you work for yourself in any way, shape, or form. So I'll part with that. If you want to kind of check us out, we're at carry.com. My social handle on Twitter is my full name, Ankur Nagpal. But yeah, it's been a blast, man. I've been enjoying following your content. Very often it's like a cold winter day in New York and I see your content and I'm like, why am I here? So thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for doing this. Hopefully this was helpful to our audience. And if you guys enjoyed this, definitely maybe send Ankur a DM and say, hey, I listened to you on My Latin Life. I'm trying to do my solo 401k, etc. I'm pretty convinced myself. So I'll be digging into this. So this has been another episode of the My Latin Life podcast. Maybe you're listening to this on YouTube or Spotify or Apple Podcasts, wherever you're listening to this. Please subscribe. We drop 2 episodes a week, wide range of guests, very smart people, and you don't want to miss any episodes. But with that, thank you to Ankur. Thank you to the audience for listening. See you soon.
This episode of the My Latin Life podcast is brought to you in part by BitRefill. BitRefill is the best way to spend your crypto in Latin America. Purchase gift cards or mobile refills from more than 3,500 brands in 186 countries instantly, safely, and privately. Visit bitrefill.com for more information. This episode of the My Latin Life podcast is brought to you in part by Job Stacking. Introducing Rolf Haltza's Paycheck Multiplication Layering Method, a revolutionary approach that redefines the traditional career path. This is Rolf's new Done With You program, where he'll work with you to implement job stacking for yourself. With this method, Rolf contractually guarantees that you'll be able to double your income in 45 days. So, are you ready to step out of the shadows of job insecurity and step into a world of career abundance? Then just click the link in the description of this episode, book a call with Rolf, and start walking the path of unleashing your earning potential with job stacking.